We are live.
Great. Thank you, Tricia. And thank you to everyone for joining us today at this webinar and conversation, Stories from the Field, Farmers' Produce Safety Alliance, sometimes known as the PSA Trainers. In this presentation, webinar conversation is generously supported by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, who's working with the NFU, the National Farmers Union, as part of the local food safety collaborative. And you might ask yourself, what's the National Farmers Union? The National Farmers Union is a grassroots, producer-driven organization that believes strong agriculture is the basis for thriving communities. And as part of that work, there's the Local Food Safety Collaborative. It's a cooperative agreement between the National Farmers Union Foundation and the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. It provides outreach, education, and training to small fruit and vegetable growers and processors on the Food Safety Modernization Act, also known as FSMA. And we work with a network of partners across the country working to implement food safety projects and expand reach. And today is one of those projects, this webinar. The first 5 minutes are me, Billy Mitchell, the Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA, training coordinator with the Local Food Safety Collaborative, giving that brief introduction and introducing our presenters. The first presenter is Annalisa Hultberg, a statewide extension educator in food safety at the University of Minnesota. That's no joke, Minnesota is a big state. Next is Laura Frerichs. Laura, you can correct me. Laura was so patient with me, and I can tell I just got it wrong again. A farmer at Loon Organics and a Produce Safety Alliance trainer. And rounding it out will be Tenisio Seanima, a farmer at Nature's Candy Farms, a Produce Safety Alliance trainer, and someone I've been lucky enough to be a farmer and friend with for the past 10 years. And y'all will be able to tell by his voice, he is also a DJ. He has an incredible voice. And at the end of the day will be a little question and answer period. So now is the time to get your Zoom background right. If you want to come on video and ask your question, don't let this happen to you. And then with 5 minutes left, we'll wrap up. We'll say thank you. And then this series will return in June 2021. If you have ideas for webinars, please email me. We would love to hear them. Annalisa, with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen if you're ready to share yours and be our first presenter.
I am ready. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
I am going to share screen. So my name is Annalisa, and I'm an extension educator at University of Minnesota, statewide, like you said. I do GAPS training and the FSMA Produce Safety Rule trainings in the state, along with our State Department of Agriculture and our training team. Farmers are a really important part of our training team, and so I will briefly talk about their role and kind of some of the logistics of getting farmers as trainers. You may lead FSMA Produce Safety Rule grower trainings in your state, or you might just engage with farmers in general and lead agricultural trainings in general. So hopefully kind of what we talk about today will be useful to you. So I think of it as steering a huge, massive ship, and it's hard to turn sometimes, but we have to constantly turn it and build it as we go. So this training team over the last 5 years, we've been building the structure, hiring the crew, continually making those adjustments as needed, and then offering lots of kind of professional development and opportunities for our crew to learn to be the best crew that they can be and to continually kind of meet our goals and our ever-changing needs as the training team and as federal regulation also changes. So it kind of starts with starting by recruiting those members, making sure you have the right team members at the beginning and consistently adding more, giving lots of opportunities for professional development and skill building, and then lots of opportunities to practice those skills, because not all of us have the joy of talking about the produce safety rule all day, right? So having lots of opportunities to continually practice that so that when they do talk about it, they feel really comfortable. So farmer trainers make a good training great. They make it excellent. They are the cornerstone of our training team, and they really provide that trusted, authentic, approachable tone. Our training teams are comprised of a Department of Agriculture staff, extension staff, and farmer trainer staff. And I think that we all work in collaboration, but the farmers themselves bring that ground tested suggestions that are there. You can't argue with it because they say, this is my lived honest to God truth. So people really respond well to that. When they talk about the benefits of food safety, I really feel that the folks listen because they have, they've done it, and it's just their truth, like I said. They're very good at talking about those double smileys that we like to call them in food safety. So food safety in and of itself is not always a profit-making venture, and so sometimes can be a tough sell in some ways. It sometimes could be thought about as an additional layer of, oh, more records I need to keep, or oh, another thing I have to learn about. But then when a farmer can say, yeah, but these records also improve efficiency and help me with my organic certification because many of the records are similar, help me with my training of employees, which I need to do anyways, help me with organization, then the farmers in the room say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can picture that on my own farm as well. The passion and just the kind of like vibrancy that they bring to the room is excellent. There's some challenges. You do have to have the funding to pay them, finding the right folks, and then just kind of, this isn't their primary job is to know about the FSMA produce safety rules. So kind of making sure everyone is continually up to snuff on that. Just to give you a really short overview of kind of our training team, we have about 34 people on our team statewide. 23 or give or take are actively training, 9 of whom are farmers, 8 are from Department of Ag, and 6 are from Extension. So we really do have kind of a diverse group. I really like each trainer to train at least once a season. I really try to do more grower trainings, and then we do more gaps trainings too. So people really have opportunities to continually practice the material. Most people have 2 or 3 modules that they kind of hone in on. They're like, these are the ones that I continually do. So it's my job to kind of keep track of everyone's specialties, and when needed, have them try out a new module as well, so they can kind of cross train as well. Oops. So here's some pictures. There's Laura training and some of our other farmer trainers, and just the vibrancy that they bring to the room, like I said, is invaluable. So we had our train the trainers, which is required if you're going to be a Produce Safety Alliance trainer. You have to attend a train the trainer. We've had 2 in Minnesota. We've led 32 grower trainings and have trained 700 attendees. I was just saying to Billy, about 80 to 90% of the folks in attendance are either excluded completely by the rule or eligible for a qualified exemption, meaning they don't have to be there, but they're there because it's a good training and because they learn about good agricultural practices. So I think that really speaks to the quality of our trainings, and that's in large part due to the farmers. So like I said, our training team is made up of those kind of people. I also really like to hire in guest lead trainers just to have another perspective, perhaps from another state. I think that's really useful. We pay the farmers $1,000 for their time for each training. So it's a day-long training. It's 8 hours. We do require that everybody is there for the whole day. I really prefer for people not to pop in and out. I think that's, if the farmer has to be there all day, I think we should be there too all day. And that also includes all of their prep time. So we do Zoom prep calls that I'll talk about next, and that includes that time. It includes meetings where we're going over updates from the FDA. It includes just their own prep time. I really like people to be well prepared and to feel comfortable with their material, and the only way you can do that is by practicing. So I want to pay them for that time. When we can travel again, of course, that includes all that travel as well. So if you do the math, it actually is pretty reasonable for what we're getting, I think. We use our CAP funds, which are those FDA funds. We also use specialty crop block grant funds. So you could use FSOP monies, you could use all kinds. I have yet to find a funder that isn't very happy to pay farmers for this. And U of M, you can see some of the kind of roles that we take on, and MDA takes on different roles in our training. So we kind of split up the responsibilities there. The Zoom practice calls, I think, are really excellent. So I just kind of made this up along with some of my PSA colleagues, and I'm sure you guys have different ways of doing it too. So the way we do it is, let's say Laura leads module 2, and so do like 3 other trainers. I assign like slides 1 through 10 are Laura. Slides 11 through 20 are Joan, or our other trainers. Then at a designated time, we all hop on and they deliver those slides within that module, just as if they were at a grower training. We all just listen. then at the end, we just kind of workshop it. We say, what worked, what didn't, what questions do you have? Where should we do activities? Is everyone super clear on the requirements of the rule here and what's a gap? So that they feel really comfortable, and those have been pretty successful. We also talk about what other kind of which optional slides do we want, basically hone our slide deck. We have a Google Drive, nothing ground shaking here, but we just have a Google Drive where we store everything. It's really nice to just have one spot where the updated slides are. That's one of the most important things, but also supporting kind of background material. We have meetings where we say, hey, everyone come together. Let's hear updates from the rule. These are required. Of course, if someone can't meet them, that's fine, but we don't have very many and they're not very long. So I feel like people really do make the best effort they can to attend. And that's where we really plan where our trainings are going to be, who's going to be there, how are we going to promote them, and what went well, what didn't, and what could we do better. We also do FDA updates. So when the water rule is maybe ever published, we'll get to hear about that and we'll talk about that. We have a Google listserv where we say, hey, here's some updates, and it goes to everybody. That's a nice thing. And then just promote the PSA educator calls. I will say there's a lot of other benefits. So yes, they can attend, they can train at the grower trainings, which makes for excellent grower trainings. I will say the evaluations almost always say at the end, thank you so much for having farmer trainers. Like, they get lots of kudos on those. But also they're just our advocates on the landscape. They're the ones that are at the conferences. They're the ones that are at the meetings, at the chapter meetings for our different organizations. And they are very knowledgeable about the rule. And so if there was maybe somebody saying something that really wasn't based in fact, they could raise their hand and say, yeah, I actually happen to know something different. I think that that's invaluable. And then also just other non-grower training educational offerings, GAPS trainings. We did a lot of online GAPS trainings this winter, paid Laura and some others to attend those as well and speak on different topics, not produce safety rule related. And I think it brings those trainings to life in the same manner. This is a picture of Laura shooting a video. So now we have kind of a built-in cadre of people that we can engage with in these sort of things. Conference presentations are really handy. This is a picture that I just took. When a farmer did a presentation on how to get a gap audit. I also talked about, this is the nitty gritty of how you get a gap audit. This is who you call. Then the farmer spoke about her experiences getting a gap audit. Guess who farmers went to ask questions after the session? It wasn't me, it was the other farmer. So there you go. And we also do something like a school garden training. So I can engage the farmers talking about non-regulatory things, but something kind of as small scale as a school garden, food safety. They can speak to that kind of audience as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. That was so great. There's I guess just a couple of things I just want to reiterate. I love that you said that they find the farmers to be trusted, authentic, and approachable. That's how I find farmers too. And I also always find them to be kind and generous. So some of them might even say yes if there is no funding, which is another reason to remember to pay them the way you are as the subject matter experts in the room, because that's incredible that those farmer to farmer interactions can happen. And that just ongoing support and built-in time to practice and practice and practice, because it's just never as easy as you think it's going to be to read those slides and have a conversation and remember the rule and remember the shoulds and the musts. So
yeah, I think that I always think of it as there's a difference between knowing the material and teaching it. And so to teach it, it's like anyone can sit and attend the train the trainer, right? Yeah, it's just passive, but to know it well enough to know on slide 25, this is my point, this is what I say, and this is the anecdote I'm going to say to bring it to life. They have it down, like they know. They have it very well organized, and it's taken years to develop that. And I should say that we do continually add the cohort that we first started with. I've added probably 3 or 4, and they've attended train the trainers in other parts of the country. So we do continually add more, and then people drop off. Maybe they just get too busy and they're not able to do this anymore. So then we kind of are continually adding people.
Great. Yeah. And I also just want to say thank you for having farmer trainers. It's really inspiring. And so speaking of those farmer trainers, Laura, are you ready to share your screen and talk with us a little bit?
Yeah, I
Great.
am ready. So my name's Laura Frerichs. I'm going to get my PowerPoint set up here. I am in Hutchinson, Minnesota. So I'm an hour west of Minneapolis. Sorry, just trying to get to the actual present. It's underneath my Zoom here. Okay, there we go. So I am a certified organic vegetable farmer in Hutchinson, Minnesota. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of my farm and also have some really colorful pictures of vegetables. We're at the beginning of spring, so we're seeing the first green things sprout up here. I farm with my partner, Adam, and we have 2 little boys. Our farm is 40 acres. We've been here for about 12 years, and we have 8 to 10 acres in cultivated vegetables each season. And we're primarily direct marketing. So we're marketing through a community supported agriculture program. We've been at a busy farmers market for 15 years and are moving into doing more wholesaling with farm to school accounts. So my husband and I are full-time farmers, and then we have paid staff, we have work shares, we have volunteers on our farm as well. So we have that kind of employee side that we can speak to in terms of the employee health and hygiene during our produce safety rule trainings. So much of what Annalisa talked about, I'm kind of going to reiterate, but just talk about kind of our perspective. And I will say that the benefits that Annalisa talked about are all completely accurate and true. There's also just the benefit of being a farmer trainer and learning this material so well and doing a deep dive into food safety. It has impacted food safety practices on our own farm and improvements that we've made and better record keeping and becoming more efficient and having a better cleaning and sanitation process. Like my employees know the 4-step cleaning process now, and it is drilled into their heads because I am a trainer and I know the importance and the value of that. And so I don't think that that would have happened to that extent had I not taken the Train the Trainer and really been immersed in this material. And we are not a covered farm. We are direct marketing most of our produce, and so we actually aren't covered underneath the rule. That being said, I always say that knowing the rule, like our goal is to meet the rule, and I think it's totally doable. And so I can talk about many of the things that we're already doing on our farm meet that rule, and here's how we're doing it. So there is that benefit to our own farm and to the employees on our farm and to our customers, honestly, who benefit from better food safety practices on our farm. As Annalisa mentioned, I think that there is definitely a benefit to your training team to have a farmer perspective as you prepare and as you think about the material and as you just hear our own examples and anecdotes, practical on the ground experiences of how we implement this food safety practices and rules and record keeping while still running profitable, successful, efficient farms. And so again, it's this balance of like, this is really important and we have a lot of other things going on in the farm. So how do we make this work? And then lastly, it is such a benefit to the attendees, farmers, but also other attendees to just hear from a trusted messenger, from someone who lives this experience and does this for a living, to hear their perspective on it. And to kind of echo what Annalisa said, we get a lot of questions during the training of like, well, how do you do this on your farm? Or this is a problem that I've encountered, like, or I just can't see how this would work. And we can kind of troubleshoot that with them. I also get a lot of farmers who come up to me at our farmers market or at a farming conference, or just in passing, they'll shoot me an email and they'll say, hey, I've got this question. I don't really want to go talk to the Minnesota Department of Ag about this, but could you give me an opinion? So again, like we're kind of like a source, and I have enough awareness that I can usually give people a pretty informed opinion or answer, but also I can say, listen, Annalisa is not scary. You are not going to get in trouble. You can definitely, I encourage you to talk to her. She's awesome. She gets what it's like to be a farmer. So you can talk to her about some of your concerns or, questions that you have. So again, just really being kind of like that conduit between the extension or your PSA training team or your Department of Ag, and then to farmers. So it's really huge and it's really valuable. And we hear that, and farmers will tell us things that they wouldn't put in their evaluations or that they wouldn't tell the other trainers, and so, I've gotten like pushback or feedback from people that then I can engage with them in those discussions and in those issues and be like, hey, this actually isn't that big of a deal when you really get down into it. Or at least that has been our experience, so let's troubleshoot some of the things that are coming up for you. The other thing that I'll say is that every training I attend, we have been doing this for a number of years as a Minnesota training team. Every training I attend, I learn something new. And that is either revisiting the material or hearing a story from a participant in the class. I always bring something out of that training that I'm taking with me. So a benefit, certainly. And I wanted to add just a few kind of, from my experience, best practices if you're thinking about adding farmer trainers. I would say tap into your region's existing farmer leaders. Who are those farmers who are already presenting at farming conferences, who are well-known and established farmers in different circles, especially if you're looking to reach, younger farmers or a certain demographic of farmers, really thinking strategically about who you're tapping or recruiting to be on your team. You definitely need a familiarity with gaps. So I want to hand it to Annalisa and the food safety extension team, because they had been cultivating us as educators and leaders about gaps. So we had done peer kind of mentorship and gap assessments on farms. So farmers going to other farms that we know and kind of assessing where they're at on the risk level with gaps. And so we came in with kind of this background foundational knowledge, definitely needed a lot of prep and practice to get on board for our first training sessions, but that familiarity would have been really hard, I think, to bring us on board without that. And then we had that established relationship. The compensation is huge. I would definitely say that has been a big benefit for us, and especially for produce farmers who have some time in the winter. It's been really nice to be adequately compensated, and I feel like then I can spend the time that I need to really prepare and organize for the trainings. And it shows up in the quality of the training that is presented. Lots of additional trainer development, as Annalisa went through. That was so helpful. And then personally, I think that modules 2, 4, and 6 are so perfect for bringing in farmer trainers, especially initially. They're practical. They talk about so much kind of on the ground practices that are happening, whether it's employee training or pest control, things we're already doing on our farms. So just taking that food safety lens and looking at those practices. So that's what I've presented on, and I love and have a special affinity for those modules. So just wanted to throw that in there. But overall, I would just say it's a win for everybody, for farmers, for your training teams, for your attendees. Really would encourage you to develop that and recruit some good farmers to be part of your training team. So that's all I've got.
Laura, thank you so much. First off, I just want to say, I don't think I was the only one who is admiring that gorgeous root washer on your first or second slide. That barrel washer is just beautiful. I know we're supposed to talk about PSA, but just so pretty. And then I just really appreciate how much you talked about trust and what an important factor that is in the training and really with adult education and this bridge you're able to create and be between the farmers and extension agents and Department of Ag. And that work that it sounds like Annalisa and other educators have done to help lay the foundation for you to be a successful educator. And that's a good reminder for me, not just to call up one of my favorite farmers and say, you want to be a PSA trainer, but make sure that they understand produce safety, like make sure there's some background knowledge. Maybe we need to start doing some GAPS courses first, but thank you. I'm really looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you.
And so up next is Tenisio. And one of the amazing things about Zoom, right, is we're all over the country. I imagine still kind of chilly in Minnesota. I saw Dr. Miles is on here. It's probably a little hot in Mississippi. Tenisio texted me he was driving through a tornado in Alabama. So he joined a little late. And hopefully you're still with us, Tenisio. If you are, we'd love to hear from you.
I am still here. Can you hear me?
Way cool. We can hear you and see you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for having me. And yes, I'm out in Carrollton, Alabama. So if any of you all don't know where that's at, don't worry. I didn't know where it was at either before I arrived here. And the signal is a little weak, so I hope I'm able to stay on. But either way, thank you all for having me. This is definitely a pleasure to just speak with you all on behalf of the farming community about our role within teaching food safety, specifically with Produce Safety Alliance and the Food Safety Modernization Act training that has been going on now for several years. I'm going to kind of give my testimony almost in somewhat of a loose story form so that hopefully you all can see a trajectory that I think will really help you also see where, you know, some folks are we'll just say having an experience that they probably didn't know they were going to have, which is I, for example, did not start off even thinking that I would ever get into agriculture. I was actually a trained radio journalist for several years and had the opportunity during that tenure of radio journalism to really see an intersectionality between some of my guests that I was interviewing who were farmers and the experience I have of being a child of people who grew up on the farm but didn't necessarily want to make farming, you know, their lifestyle. And so long story short, in interviewing some of these farmers, I really felt the need to become a part of this movement and got involved. And these particular growers that I was, you know, interacting with at the time, I can see that there was something very special about my experience with them because all of them were educators in some way, shape, or form. Many very formally and some informally. And so this idea of farmers teaching other farmers was something that really became a part of just my MO, if you will, right out the gate via the people who were teaching me. And so it was just a perfect fit, if you will, to then begin to dive into not only this world of food safety, but even many different worlds related to agriculture, to where I've been able to use my experiences as a grower and have a real, true, authentic connection to other growers to help them not only learn some best practices, but also to avoid mistakes, right? And just really be able to reduce the learning curve. So what I'd like to say about just, you know, the first draw for me to this is just being, again, a child of growers who were, you know, willing to say, hey, look, we know that it's easy to sing E-I-E-I-O and look at farming as something so chic and sexy and put the rose-colored glasses on and, you know, come out here and play in the field. But, you know, we want you to also, you know, learn some things that are really life lessons about this work. And so because I was trained in that way, it was only right for when Produce Safety Alliance in particular, you know, came to, I think, it was either my city or I had to travel to another city in Georgia and do the train. I felt it was just a part of my mission. Now, with all of that being said, it's definitely been an experience that I think helps me tremendously with regards to, I'm a very hands-on learner. And so one of the best ways that I'm able to learn even for myself is to test out, well, what do I really know when conveying it to others? And so as a farmer who's, having this experience of teaching other farmers, I don't want to get caught faking the funk because I've been in many different scenarios where, I've been at conferences or webinars, and, we as farmers sometimes, we feel like these trainings can be paternalistic when it's not being given to us by our fellow comrades, right? And so oftentimes, when I've seen these type of trainings and I've said to myself, like, okay, I wonder if this person has actually ever done the things that they're talking to me about, or did they just learn about it in an agronomy course in college? I said to myself, well, I can't fault them when here I am, and I have the opportunity to be that, boots to the ground representation of what many of these technical trainings, look like in real life. And so I think for me, it was important to just really, be an ambassador, if you will, for other growers and say to them, look, yes, a lot of times some of these rules and a lot of this information can seem very daunting, and you almost wonder if the person who made up the rule has ever even attempted to do it in real life. But you can give them the understanding that I too am right there out there with you, making sure that we are putting some paint where it ain't, as they say, and putting some authenticity to these rules and to these quote unquote regulations, because no one likes to feel like they're being told how to farm or how to run their life. But with regards to food safety, as had already been mentioned, one of the most beautiful things is that many of these particular modules that we teach are things that we all really have already been doing. And just to be able to then pride myself and even saying to other growers, like, look, I know some of this may, again, sound somewhat technical, but be happy and be glad to know that many of you all have already been champions for this. And so now here's an opportunity for you to really be able to wear that badge of honor by, getting a formal training that can put you in a position where you have a competitive advantage when you go out into the marketplace. And again, to be able to connect with someone and say, not only is that something that I know you're going to experience, but I'm experiencing it too. Again, it just drives home that notion of authenticity really being, I think, the key for the grower to grower connection. One last thing I really want to talk about is also just the legacy that comes with doing this kind of work. So me being a farmer of color, a quote unquote Black farmer, I am very much attached to the history that comes along with, let's say, schools such as a Tuskegee University, because oftentimes people don't really see how much of a big role that particular institute played. But I'm going to bring it into the fold of what we're doing now in this day and time with farmer to farmer training and specifically with food safety. When Tuskegee was founded, this was a school that was founded at a time when Black students were not allowed to attend all of the other land grant schools that existed. So you're talking about the 1862s had been created during the Merrill Act #1. And, this was an opportunity, of course, for the country to rebound from the Civil War and the brain drain that it went through due to that many deaths that occurred. And here it is, you have this school in rural Alabama, Tuskegee Institute, that realized it has to be able to fill in a gap because the people in that community weren't allowed to go to those schools, but they still needed to receive this support and education. And so the school was born, and from that school came a very popular program that many of you all I know are aware of, known as cooperative extension. And see, cooperative extension was actually born out of the fact that not only did Tuskegee decide to serve a constituency that wasn't being served elsewhere, but it also realized that part of its constituency couldn't come to its school, right? So you had many Black farmers who couldn't afford to leave their land. They couldn't get up and just go to these schools. And so they created the mobile school, which was originally known as the Jessup Wagon and eventually became known as the Booker T. Washington Mobile School on Wheels. And they, as subject matter experts on farming, went to the farmers to really educate them. And so the first cooperative extension agent that was hired by the USDA was actually a Tuskegee University extension agent, and that's Thomas Monroe Campbell. Why I bring all of that up to say is that, you know, when you look at the trajectory of what cooperative extension has come, how far it has come and where it came from, it really did start with the needs of those who are truly connected to this work, going back to their circle of influence and conveying the message that, hey, you know, look at what we found out over here. You all need to implement that over there. And I've really taken pride in, you know, saying to myself, you know, I want to keep that that era, if you will, alive. And so when I had the opportunity to become a trainer, again, to me, it was also just about the legacy of making sure that we as the growers are presented as the most valuable subject matters that ever could be. Again, we've, you know, bumped our knee on the pavement and figured out what didn't work and what does work. And here is yet another opportunity for us to be able to really embrace some information that could be very influential over our businesses and over our the impact in our communities. You know, why not be the ones to champion it and then be able to go and promote that message forward in real time? Because I'll close with the fact that, yes, as Billy mentioned, I was driving through an actual tornado zone to go help another farmer. We are right now focusing on building out an orchard, but much of our conversation is around, you know, what are these policies and procedures and things that, you know, he would need to learn in order to make sure that he's going to be a successful grower. And so I definitely have plans. He doesn't know it yet. He probably hears me in the background, but we're going to be getting into food safety and really talking about, you know, have you really thought about the plan of what you're going to do as you begin right here from the beginning, moving all the way to the marketplace, and how will food safety play a role in that? And I agree wholeheartedly with the last speaker that I really do enjoy modules 2, 4, and 6 in particular, because of the exact same points that you mentioned. They really do just reflect a lot of who we are and what we already know, but they really wrap a bow around the opportunity to just improve and make sure that, again, we are enhancing and optimizing what we do. And so with that being said, you know, I just thank you all for allowing me to really just kind of share that, you know, story, if you will. And like I said, put a little bit of paint where it ain't, you know, I don't have to get into the benefits of, yes, a little bit of extra income. Of course, that doesn't hurt. But for me, it's really just about that mission of making sure that we as growers become the subject matter experts, and that people value us just as much as they do any other technical expert out there in the world. So with that being said, thank you for that time. And I appreciate you all for having me today.
Yeah, thank you, Tenisio. I gotta agree. It does not feel good to get caught faking the funk, to have a room of 50 farmers and you say, and inspect your water system, and someone's like, how do you do that? And you go, well, I got a text down at PSA. I'll get back to you. So it's like really important to have that. And I really appreciate that reminder of just the history of farmer to farmer education. And farmers are already always teaching each other, you know, like even when I go to the weddings of when farmers are getting married, people are just talking about pests they've seen in the field. Like even at the wedding, they just can't help but like sharing stories and knowledge back and forth. And I will say, so mostly on this call, we have educators, and this is a really good time to build up your question karma as you go back out into the world for PSA grower trainings, because we've all been in that room where we ask growers if they have any questions, and it's just silence. So today, take the opportunity to ask some questions so you can really build up that karma bank. And I do wanna, there's already a couple things in the chat box. First, we'd love to hear any suggestions, stories, or tips about how to get people to engage in these virtual environments, since we're all so comfortable engaging with farmers face-to-face. Laura, Annalisa, Tenisio, any luck getting folks to engage in environments like this?
We use polls pretty successfully. So we use the polling function in Zoom in most every, I don't think we have any in one, but in all the other ones, we have some polls. And then we do 2 breakouts in each virtual grower training. That's as creative as we've gotten with time. I would love to do like videos and other things, but given time constraints, we haven't that I can think of, but maybe Laura wants to add something. But those breakouts and those polls are both good, especially the breakouts.
real-time follow-up, what are those breakouts like?
So we do them for module 3 and module 2. And so because we don't actually do 2 and 3 consecutively, we mix it up in Minnesota. So after module 2, we send people into groups and we say, spend 5 minutes and talk about what you learned about worker health and hygiene and what you're going to do differently on your farm now. And then we do the same thing. And for module 3, soil amendments, we say we do the rank the risk activity, but we do it in breakouts. And we say, here are some biological soil amendments, rank their relative risk and talk about if this product is treated or not. We'll come back and discuss. It often is the only time people are verbally talking. So I think just the act of like saying words instead of being talked to changes something in your brain chemistry and gets you more engaged. I would love to do more breakouts, but time, we'd have to have a 12-hour training and we do get it done in 8 in the online.
Thank you. There is Laura and Tenisio, we have a question for you. Folks would love to hear y'all talk about advice you would give to a farmer who is considering joining a training team. What has been something that has made your journey as a trainer successful? And Laura, maybe we'll start with you. What's some advice you would give to other farmers? What's made your journey successful?
That's a good question. I think that really like a commitment to take the time and really learn the rule, like beginning the training sessions. I mean, I think after the train the trainer, I really needed to just spend some time to get past the regulatory language to be like, what does this really mean? What does this really talk about? And Annalisa and the training team was helpful in kind of helping to break that down. I also take a lot of advantage of the PSA webinars that they're putting out and like module by module. So there have been a few of those that I can listen to and I'm like, oh, module 4. Oh, I totally get this. I just needed like I needed like real world talk to get past the regulatory talk. So then I kind of know how to talk about it. So that was a really helpful resource to me. And then same with the training sessions that we do as a group that I can do with other farmers. And then I see how they present it. What we've really tried to work on is like not reading the slides, getting to like the root of that material that the slide is talking about. And then if it's an important point, like how can we give a real world example of that? So constantly like thinking about practical things that we're dealing with on the farm every day and how it relates to the material.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I can definitely concur with a lot of what she just mentioned. And, what I'll say is, of course, it's always circumstantial because stylistically, I'm a very bottom line kind of teacher, meaning, everyone now probably has a running joke behind my back for all I know that, Tenisio is always going right back to the rule and referencing the rule and the subsections. And, it's just because for me as a farmer, like, just get to the point, like I'm that kind of grower where it's like, I definitely love to be able to convey the detail, but also just drive it home that, the letter is the law. And what I find is that I think many farmers respect that because even if, they especially in the era of Zoom taking over due to COVID, when they get burnt out from just being in all these meetings, you still want them to know that you can do this. It's kind of a side point, but, the same thing applies when I learned about certified organic standards. I just had someone just sit me down and show me the actual, NOP and where is everything at? And then it becomes a situation in which you begin to use it more as like a reference to what you do versus you feeling like, oh gosh, I got to change up my entire system. It's like, no, here are the rules, but let's find the things that truly are applicable to you and let's hone in on that. And so being able to just take a bottom line approach, I think has been very successful for me because then it allows farmers to know that though you're going to hear a lot of information in these trainings, just, zone in on what's most applicable and you'll be all right. And I'll just add, that the other competitive advantage, of course, of being a grower is I just know some of those inside grower jokes. So, just being able to try and really relate with them with just scenarios that we know we've all experienced. I think it's something that's very important. If I may veggie back off of you real quick, Billy, I know how you always get to that porta potty slide and tell that story, of just experiences you've had seeing those things happen on farms. Like we relate to seeing, the information conveyed in, those scenarios that we've all been through. So again, that kind of just goes back to what I said, even in my presentation, just authenticity, give them something that they know is real. And I think they'll be, along for the ride. And I'll just close with, getting them into actually becoming trainers, I think just boils down to the circle of influence growing as they hear that more and more of their comrades are, becoming a part of it. There's always naturally early adopters in any kind of field and industry. So I never expect us to hit critical mass in anything I do in life. But I've always been an early adopter. And I think once, you can talk the talk, but then walk the walk and show others, they begin to see some of the incentives themselves and come on board. But, farmers are skeptical people. They get a lot of smoke and mirrors thrown at them about here's the next this and the next that and the best practice for this. So they want to see somebody who's actually gone through the fire come out unscathed. And when it comes to this food safety world, that could be one of those scenarios where, they never know what they should have to do or not do until it hits home and they see someone else has experienced something. So, that's it for me. I think just being able to show them that, hey, I've done this too, really inspires them. And, I've seen some farmers at least inquire about, what does it take to become a trainer? So hopefully we'll begin to see more of them, take that big leap of faith as time goes on.
Thanks, Tenisio. And that's a good reminder for all us educators to provide a really good experience for these farmers as they're becoming trainers, because definitely growers will let other growers know if it was just not a good experience and to not risk it. And then Daryl had a point, I think, about just engaging farmers virtually, but making sure that we make the space to bring farmers to the planning table so they can share their thoughts about what works and what doesn't. It's so easy for me to get trapped in my educator bubble. We come up with this amazing idea and then I call my friend Julia, who's a farmer, to show off the idea. And she's like, no, that makes no sense. This is what we would do. And I'm like, I could have saved a lot of time just calling you first. So we have a good question for all three of you. It sounds like in Arkansas, they just had a farmer attend to train the trainer. Any words of wisdom for her as she joins to teach for the first time? And then for Tenisio and Laura, but maybe Annalisa too, how much prep work did they need after the trainer before you felt comfortable teaching the materials? So words of advice, and how much prep time would you suggest? I'll say I'm still getting comfortable with it, but Annalisa,
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, what I can say has worked for me is I've just picked a module at a time and really honed in on them. I think now I'm on to probably training number 4 as a trainer, and so just taking your time to really practice these modules ahead of time, of course, but repeating them as much as necessary is good. I feel I had yet another competitive advantage. I was a radio journalist, as I mentioned, so just being able to be kind of quick on my feet is not complicated for me anyway. So my style is almost like teleprompter style. I do read the book, but I have a way to make it sound natural and it doesn't sound like I'm really reading. So I would say, just having that classic high school, experience of practicing in front of the mirror, it sounds so cliche, but it really does work because the key is just to get over the ums and uhs and not be afraid of saying something and then not sounding right and just coming back and just, revisiting it. I've done that a couple of times in training. You don't have to feel nervous. You don't have to look at it as, these people are looking at me as if I'm the be all end all on food safety. They get it. We're all going through this together. But definitely, just having that opportunity to really even, I'd say, like Billy said, present information in your style to other farmers even ahead of time wouldn't hurt. But yeah, I'm on right now, I'd say I'd say if I were to rank myself at a 10, I'm about an 8 on about a good 2 to 3 of the modules. And I'm looking forward to learning the others. And so I like to just throw myself out there in the fire and just try them out and work different styles, you know, every now and then. So
I think it's important to remember that there's always the lead trainer in the room too, assuming the farmer might be the lead trainer too. But if you're not, I totally agree that you do not have to get everything perfect. I mean, it's best if you don't say something
Right.
that's like actually inaccurate, but if you omit
That's
something,
right.
first of all, it's in the notes, so it's there. And second of all, if you do make a mistake there, that's why a lead trainer is there. So, you know, just that relaxing kind of just like lower stress, like, hey, this is actually, and then pitching it as this, the stuff that we're going to hear about in module 4 about animals, this will actually kind of be useful to you, and kind of pitching it as that useful thing. I think as a new trainer, I would suggest a new trainer kind of take that frame right from the beginning, and then attend grower trainings without training as well. From the beginning, I went to a few grower trainings in other states, just in like neighboring states, just to see them, didn't present. I think that would be useful, just to hear how I love seeing other people do the modules.
Yeah, same to what you just said, Annalisa. I think the trainer that we attended wasn't actually like a grower training. And so I really needed to like watch those PSA modules, because I was like, but how do you teach this? Like, I know we went over the important points, and we, you know, talked about some examples, but I need to know how to actually teach this, and what are the slides that I can spend 30 seconds on, and what are like, what's the arc here? And so I think like really helping your farmer trainers like dig into that and see that like there's an arc. It follows, you know, how whatever that acronym is at the beginning. I know we have an acronym, Annalisa, that I can't remember. Aim high. Okay. You know, so like we'll talk about that, but it's like, for me, that's been so helpful, because then that's how I can teach it. I can be like, okay, here's how this module is set up. Here is the arc. We're assessing risks here. Then we're going to dive in, you know, and talk about the actual rule. And then we're going to talk about like what happens when things go wrong. And so like, if you can kind of help that farmer really get past, as we mentioned before, like that, just the regulatory language, and some of the slides don't make a ton of sense sometimes. And like, it's just like, yep, that's there, whatever, you're going to talk about it later. So if you can give them some guidance on that, that is helpful. You know, I think what has been most challenging to me is like, normally if I'm presenting, I'm making the slides, I'm making the workshop, I know the material. And so we're coming in from the outside, having to like learn it and teach it without it being ours. So you got to spend a lot of time with it to really like feel it, I think, as Tenisio mentioned too.
And if I may, on that point, you know, I haven't had the opportunity to necessarily make my own slides, but within a similar vein, what I can say I have done is I have looked at the slides that exist, and I've said to myself, where is this applicable to either my farm or just my farm experience that I've had in life? Because, you know, the moment that I connect to it just on a day-to-day level, that sticks in my mind when I'm then going through these slides and sending this message to farmers. And then that allows me to also itemize, well, where are those areas that I really didn't have any real life experience with? And how do I kind of, you know, put a little bit more time and preparation into those areas, so that, though to the point that was mentioned, yes, we have the backing of our lead trainers, but I can still, you know, just make sure that I've, you know, tried to connect it to the real world and something that I know I can say, okay, I've seen it happen over there. So yeah, I try to do that inventory of where does the rule apply to what I've already experienced, and then where does the rule apply to areas I haven't dove into, and then just, you know, spend the respective time itemizing them in a way so that I know I can give myself enough lead time to really get, you know, good at some of those areas that I haven't seen in my own personal farming experience.
Wow, thanks y'all. Annalisa, I think this one might be for you. are there any common traits that you've seen with your farmer presenters? And are there any things that just don't, sometimes farmers probably just don't work out as trainers, just like educators sometimes don't work out as trainers. Are there any common reasons why there as well?
I would say just a comfort with public speaking would be the main thing. Do you like to stand in the front of the room? If you don't, it's going to be pretty evident to your your audience. You don't have to love every second of it. I get nervous. I mean, if you don't get nervous, you probably should get a new job, right? Like you should have a little bit of nerves, but you should like get energy from that, I would say. And in general, enjoy it. And I would say also have a knack for the legal, the minutia. You don't have to have every, exactly remember what subpart and provision number it was, but do you want to think about the frankly minutia of the produce safety rule? Because it's not just gaps. And so sometimes new trainers might think, oh, it's just food safety, it's just gaps. Well, it is, but it's also really thinking about something that may or may not have a lot of logic. It does. It's logical, but there are some things that we just have to say, this is the rule as written. So we're not going to spend any more time arguing about it because this is the rule. We're going to move on, sort of a thing. So if you're comfortable saying those things and have the mind to keep those generally straight, and an interest in learning those kind of minutia, because you will have to spend time, and I would hope that someone would be spending their time doing something that they kind of enjoy.
Thank you. So we are rounding into our last minute and a half. So I don't want to cut you all off, but I would love to end on just one thing that you love about doing the grower trainings. And so Tenisio, we'll start with you, then Laura, then Annalisa, but what's one thing you love about doing the trainings?
I love actually just building the network, and just being able to just see more farmers who are out here, crazily like me, one food safety plan at a time, if you will. And it's beautiful because, again, even though I am a trainer, again, I might be training a farmer who's done something that I haven't gotten to the stage of doing yet on my own personal farm. So it allows me to leverage their experiences as well, too, and figure out how to improve my farm. But then as I mentioned, gives me one more scenario just to offer as I continue to go into more sessions with other farmers. So I love the networking.
Yeah, same. I think connecting with other growers, with the other attendees there, with our training team, and building those relationships has been an unexpected value and a positive of being involved on the training team. And I've made connections with other farmers who've been at the trainings, and we've gone on to kind of be, peer mentors for each other, or realize that we're neighbors, relatively in a rural area. We're like 30 minutes away. So that's a neighbor to me. So just making those connections, I mean, that is like the positives of this regulatory training, is that this is happening and building community in the process. And I love that.
Yeah, I would just say hearing what people's questions are helps me as an educator. I go to all of our trainings, and it's because every single time I learn so much. So I try to not tune out, because I really want to hear what people's questions are and ask them over lunch, hear like, how does that, when we say to do XYZ, or the produce safety rules says to do XYZ, how does that sound? Like, what is your reaction to that? Because that helps me build a program to help overcome those barriers. But I have to know what those challenges are. So one of the places I can hear about that is at the trainings. And our having those farmer trainers really brings out that trust and allows people to ask those questions, because if it was just regulators at the front of the room, it's possible that they would not feel comfortable asking those questions.
Y'all are making me have all the feels. I can't wait till we're back in person and get to build relationships like this. But I'm so glad for Zoom at the same time. So with that, we've gone just a smidge over. And so I just want to say thank you again so much to Annalisa, Laura, and Tenisio for all the work you do for the community building and your time today. And I look forward to seeing everybody in June for this next round of webinars. Please reach out if you have ideas. and please stay in touch. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was great. Take care.